Sup peeps, Rockskull here. Ultimates in Overwatch are honestly a big part of making this game what it is, giving you these big pop-off moments when you press Q, triangle, Y, and whatever it is on Switch. I thought it would be fun to take a deep dive into each of these ultimates to see how good and fun I think the design is. Note that this is purely from a personal fun gameplay design perspective playing as and against, and isn't really considering the balance of the ultimate in the game's current state, since that changes so much. Also remember, as always, this is just my dumb opinion, so feel free to leave yours about a particular ult in the comments. We'll start from the bottom and work our way up. If you've ever watched my Overwatch videos, you might think you already know what's going to be at the bottom of this ult design list, but the reality is... okay, yeah, it's Bastion. I will forever stand by the opinion that Configuration Tank from Overwatch 1 was super fun to use, and the replacement Configuration Artillery is so The ult forces you to sit in one place and remotely put down 3 pretty easy to dodge mini Doomfist ults. The philosophy behind this change feels so backwards, as the Overwatch 2 rework he got was supposed to make Bastion keep up with the pace of 5v5, yet they give him an ult that makes you stand still. If you've ever tried Bastion in 6v6, you would realize that Configuration Artillery honestly fits a lot better there since it's slower paced. Because we just got the old Hog's secondary fire back, it seems very possible to me for the devs to bring back Bastion's old tank form. So pretty please do it, Overwatch devs. The only thing I like about this ultimate is one of the perks they added for it, Armored Artillery. This allows you to be aggressive with Bastion, or save yourself in clutch situations, which is kinda neat. The only other ult I have in the Stinky tier goes to Widowmaker's Infra Sight. This ult gives you and your team wall hacks for 15 seconds, and to me this is just really boring. Hanzo literally has the ability for wall hacks on a cooldown, and you're telling me this is her big ultimate? It does flow with her kit well at least, it still is not very interesting to me. I remember I had suggested a change a while back to make Widowmaker's ult also power up her weapon during its duration, which they actually added as a perk in the iconic perk patch. Unfortunately, ult perks in Overwatch typically stink unless they are way overtuned, due to ults obviously being a lot less consistent and unavailable, so it was rarely picked, and then eventually removed. It's one of those things that should have been a base kit feature after it was removed to make Widowmaker's ult a bit more interesting in my opinion. Now we get into the meh tier, where the ults might have a fun thing or two about them, but overall still don't really interest me personally. At the bottom of this tier, we got Moira's Coalescence, and Mercy's Valkyrie. Now the problem I have with these two ultimates is that you kind of just use them during a team fight and get value. Not a ton of thought going into it from your end most of the time from my experience. The only reason these two aren't in the Stinky tier for me is because I do like the counterplay for Coalescence, being able to stun her out of it, and the crazy movement you can do in Valkyrie allows it to have some crazy point stalling potential compared to other ultimates. Doing the DPS playstyle with these two ultimates is pretty epic too. Reaper and Pharah's ultimates are grouped here because I think they are a pretty similar deal. A lot of the time it's pretty much press this button to die with a small chance to get big kills. They both became a bit more interesting with perks, like Reaper gaining movement speed after wraithing to boost the ult speed, and Pharah being able to straight up move during her ult. These are fine ways to make the ults a bit more interesting, but at base, the ults to me still just do everything for you mechanically with not much skill involved, other than timing. Oh my boy Ramatra, it's sad to see you near the bottom of this list, but it is true, your ultimate kinda stinks. Annihilation is such a weird ultimate to me. As like a bunch of other parts of Ramatra's kit, it feels like the vision of the ultimate is not actually how it ended up being used most of the time. Put it simply, this ultimate is just used to live, and reset cooldowns in most situations. I really hope if they ever look into major changes to Ramatra's kit down the line, the ult becomes more about attacking instead of defending. The only reason this ultimate isn't in the Stinky tier is because those moments when you do get to punch people are awesome, and the ult line Suffer As I Have is amazing. Orisa's Terra Surge is also kind of weird, as there are a few interesting things you can do with it, but typically that doesn't happen. The majority of the time, from my experience, people will just escape your ultimate before you can kill them. However, the pull aspect of it can be comboed with things like Wu Yang ult to make it extremely deadly. It's one of those ultimates I don't really know how you can change it, because I wouldn't want it to be a free kill either for the Orisa. Perhaps you can buff the pull and slow aspects of it more while nerfing the damage, to make it a team comboing ultimate. Juno and Kiriko I have together here as their ults have a similar problem. You just throw them out during the team fight, and the AoE effects will do the work for you. I do personally think Kiriko's is a bit more interesting, because attack/cooldown speed buffs are a rarer thing in Overwatch. Something I'd like to see for Juno's ult is to make it so you can press the ult button again to change the direction of the beam to where you are facing. This would help correct those moments where your team outruns it, and add a bit more skill to the ult. I'm thinking Kiriko's ult can have a similar thing to where, when you cast it, you legit get a POV of the Fox Spirit, and can control the Kitsune to make it curve almost if needed. The Doomfist community has known Meteor Strike being a pretty stinky ultimate, and yeah, I have to agree for the most part. It's a similar deal to Ramatra's ult, where most of the time it's used as an ability/health reset rather than something to attack with. I do think Doomfist's ult got much better on the switch to Overwatch 2 though, as now it has a slow, and it charges your punch, making it decent as an attack tool. It flows with this kit nicely too, since he's so heavily ability based. The only thing that was a downgrade to Overwatch 2 for me is that going up to the skybox with this ultimate doesn't have as much value as it used to, because slam height damage got removed. But at least going high still can be done. Symmetra put down big wall protect, not much else to say. Baptiste's amplification matrix can be a tad satisfying to use for the Bat player and his teammates, but honestly, since it sits in one place, the majority of the time people just hide out this ultimate and it doesn't get a ton of value. Soldier's tac visor would have been put lower here if it wasn't for that recent perk. This makes it so the helix cooldown is just 2 seconds in tactical visor, and it feels like it finally gives this ultimate its much needed lethality. Again, another one of those perks I'm personally not against it being base kit, just to make the ult a bit more interesting. Otherwise, tac visor is only something players with really good aim are already doing. Wrecking Ball's mines to me are fine. They have some skill to them, being a really good area denial tool, but otherwise not a ton mechanically. Let's be real, 99% of the time you use this ult, it's minefield, pile drive, and then maybe get a kill if it's a hero with no mobility. Where his ult comes up so often, it might as well be an ability, and honestly I think it earns that title. Since it's a projectile, there's some skill to it, but most of the time you'll just be throwing it out into a lonesome squishy in the backline to maybe explode him. Not super interesting to me otherwise. Soldier's ult can be pretty satisfying to use, which I think earns it at the top of this tier. But something that has always bothered me about it is that it doesn't really give Soldier's something super unique to do. Like if we look at every other hero's ultimate in the game, they get these really flashy things that are like a completely new ability. Soldier's is only more rails, which is something you are already doing as its her main gameplay loop. Again, still pretty fun to play as, but I think I would rather Soldier's be given something more unique like the other heroes in the game. The decent tier goes to ults I can have a, well, decent time using, and I like the concept of. Lifeweaver's Tree I have at the bottom of this tier, as it is unfortunately one of those sort of boring AoE support ultimates. Since it's something you place, though, there's actually quite a bit of unique things you can do with it. One of my favorite ones is Lifeweavers that place the tree in a tight space to block people off like a Mei wall. This thing is chunky though with its health, so nobody's getting through that thing. Hog's ultimate might be one of the most redeemable parts of his kit in my opinion, since there is so much you can honestly do with it compared to the one-sided nature of the rest of his kit. You can boot people off the map, you can be insanely good at stopping big ult pushes, and it is really good at shredding people if they are against a wall. Being able to hook and heal while in this now creates even more choice with the ult. Perhaps it needs more counterplay options now like it had in the past, but otherwise a decent time to me. Sombra's EMP I have in this tier because it's one of those ults that can be really fun to use in my opinion, as hitting a big EMP can instantly win you a team fight. It's also heavily team oriented compared to other ultimates, as if your team doesn't follow up, the EMP typically doesn't get much value, which brings a unique timing skill to this ultimate in my opinion. Still, this ult doesn't have a lot mechanically to it, and can really stink to play against while playing certain heroes, so it doesn't go that high. Diva Bomb is unfortunately one of those ults that's typically just used as the health reset, but compared to Doomfist and Ramatra's, I think hers is done a lot better. There's a ton of cool things you can do with her self-destruct, like sliding it off rooftops, comboing with teammates like Wu Yang, and pushing it yourself off an edge as Baby Diva. It also has a ton of counterplay too, of course, with simple cover and shields, which I like. Brig's Rally has gone through a bunch of changes over the years, and honestly, I think it's the best it's ever been in its current state. You get to power up teammates and yourself with more health, and you get this big shield you can stun people with that can definitely come in clutch in the right moment. It has counterplay options, with Brig being very vulnerable herself if she's too aggressive. Junker Queen's Rampage is kind of one of those ults that pretty much does everything for you, as it's pretty hard to miss it on people with how big the radius is. Still, it can be really satisfying to use, and I've seen some Queen players use it for some pretty sick rollouts. I'm not sure how I feel about that recent perk though, as it kind of just removes the rare counterplay of this ultimate, which is stunning her during it. Preferably, I wish the perk did something against the easy cleanse counterplay people typically do. Zenyatta's Transcendence is one of those reactive support ultimates that I just call fine. You press a button to save your teammates from really bad situations. Not a ton you can do with this ult mechanically besides the mobility being helpful for getting around. The ult has a ton of counterplay options too, with line of sight breakers, boops, and antis if timed right. Just a decent one overall that doesn't stand out too much to me. Venture's ult to me feels like the basis of what most DPS ults should probably be in Overwatch 2. A high damaging ult with a lot of counterplay options. Something I'd like to see them try with this ultimate though is pausing the timer whenever you go underground, so you can get to better positions with the ult without being punished for it. Hanzo's Dragon Strike would probably be near the bottom of this list if it weren't for the recent changes to it. They've buffed its speed, damage, and now it can finally damage buildable objects like Immortality Field, making it a super deadly ultimate. It still has a ton of uses outside of just killing people though, with it being a really good zoning tool, and comboing with other ultimates well. It still has counterplay options too though, with support ults, either deflecting the initial projectile, or simply moving out of the way. Thor's Molten Core is a similar deal, with it being really good at zoning, but its unique property of doing bonus damage to armor makes it insanely good against tanks in particular. There's definitely a skill with placing it too, with how it spreads and bounces off walls. Counterplay is also similar to Hanzo's ultimate, where you can deflect or eat the initial projectile, or simply move out of the way. The good tier includes ults I actually like in their current state for the most part. Starting out, we have surprisingly Cassidy's High Noon. In the old days, this ultimate was seen as the worst in the game. It was so bad, high-level cast players were literally only using it to reload. I'm actually a big fan of all the changes they've done with this ultimate recently though. The ultimate locks onto people much faster, you get 40% damage reduction, and a movement speed penalty that decreases over time. All this has given the ultimate so many other uses outside of just reloading your weapon. It can get you kills, it's a fantastic zoning tool, and comboed with speed boosts, Cassie can actually chase down people with his ultimate, which is pretty nuts. It still keeps all the old counterplay from before though with stuns, shields, and projectile eating abilities. Right above Cassidy, we have surprisingly Maga. I say surprisingly because I've never been a fan of Maga's general design, but similar to Hog, I actually think his ultimate is kind of cool. It forces a bunch of enemies in place with you, and it gives you infinite ammo to shoot to your heart's desire. This can be used to isolate aggressive enemies, combo with your teammates since it traps enemies, or just using it to protect yourself because of the massive shield it puts around you. It has the neat counterplay option of just breaking the ultimate, or the massive risk it puts Maga himself in if he traps the wrong enemy with him.
Hey, old man, give me everything. Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
Mei's ult I've always been a pretty big fan of. Snowball go in sicko mode, putting this big area of effect freeze on enemies. It can be used as a zoning ult, something to combo with your teammates, or simply just a thing to get kills. A really cool thing they added recently was a perk that adds healing and a 25% speed buff, giving Mei even more cool support options with their ultimate. It has significant counterplay options too, with the initial projectile being eatable, breaking line of sight, and cleanses. Lucio's beat will always be iconic, and I think something that definitely at least deserves this good tier. It's similar to Zenyatta's where it can be used to protect your team in high damage moments. But personally, I like beat as a concept a lot more. It's a one-time use thing instead of consistent big healing like Zen, so you have to make sure you are casting it in the right spot. It also can be cancelled on the initial cast. One of my favorite parts about it, though, is that it flows with Lucio's kit extremely well. Being able to speed people with beat makes it even more useful as an aggression tool compared to Zenyatta's trans. And with the recent perk, can make it even better. Fish's Pulse is another one of those that charges very quickly and can almost be a throwaway ultimate. However, compared to like Freya's, I think it is designed much better. It's really hard to hit with a definite skill learning how to throw the projectile. And there's a ton of counterplay options even if you do get stuck. I'm honestly a big fan of Hazard's Downpour. Being able to hold enemies in place, similar to Maga's ultimate, has big team combo potential. There's actually a bit of mechanical skill with Hazard's ult too, as you can flick it last second to bait enemies. I love how it flows with this kit as well, being able to freely combo enemies stuck within it. It has a ton of counterplay options, like simply dodging the ultimate during its cast time, or throwing a Kiriko cleanse at the right time. Overall, really solid. The only reason I don't have it in the top tier is it feels a little too easy to dodge at times. Also, a huge missed opportunity for Hazard to say,
"Time to get freaky!"
when casting it. For Ashe, I mean, come on dude, who doesn't love Bob? He's tanky, contests objectives, boops and shoots people, and he's got a little hat. Having this big zoning ultimate that has potential to boot people up really flows with Ashe's sniper kit well too. Even with this, the ultimate still has a ton of counters with line of sight breakers, and the enemy team just focusing him down to get him out of the way. Idioti's ult I have just above Bob here. As compared to the one-dimensional nature of her kit, I think her ultimate is pretty fun. It's this massive AoE explosion you can send out to put a mark on a bunch of people. And the element I like about it is if you want to do good damage, you have to do at least 90 more damage to the mark enemies. It means there is a ton of mechanical skill involved with this ultimate. And it has the potential for big follow-up from your team. It has a ton of counterplay options too, as the initial projectile is pretty slow and massive, so it can easily be eaten by things like Defense Matrix or deflected by Genji. Also, there's a decent amount of time to react even if you do get marked, so the supports on your team can cleanse or use their own ultimates to counter it. Only reason I don't have it in the top tier is because it can feel a little too easy to counter at times. I might be a bit biased on this one because I was a Junkrat main in my OG Overwatch days, but I do think Riptire is a pretty well designed ultimate. There's so many unique spots you can get to with its wall climbing ability, and the general mobility with the boost perk it has allows for some crazy dodging potential. It's very counterable with it only having 100 health, and a lot of things completely negating it like cleanse or immortality field. A niche thing you could do with it as well as running up against a wall to make it quieter, since this ultimate is very loud. The only reason I don't have this in the top tier is that it can feel pretty uncounterable on some of the low mobility heroes, but otherwise I think it's a really good ult design. Next up, we got the classic nice Ana Nano Boost. This ultimate is always so nice to use to the person you're giving it to, and if you time it perfectly on the Ana player's end, it honestly might be one of the best ultimates in the entire game. With the heal it gives, you can even use it to save people, and with the recent perk, you can even sort of use it as a mobility tool. My main problems with this ultimate are mainly is that there isn't much mechanical input needed from the Ana player's end. Simply just press a button while looking at a teammate. There's also the fact that you don't have the option to give it to yourself, which I find a bit odd, as I think Ana players should have the option to do so you don't have to always always fully rely on your teammates to get value out of it. Still a very satisfying ult to use though if your teammate gets big kills with it, or you save them. At the top of this tier, we have Echo's Duplicate. This ultimate is easily one of my favorite parts of her kit, as the skill ceiling will forever rise on it the more heroes that are added to the game. It can be used defensively as a second life for Echo, or aggressively using the abilities of the heroes you duplicated. I think my only gripe with it is how difficult it can be to get the ultimate of the hero you duplicated in time, but luckily this has been mitigated a ton with her recent perks. Epic tier goes to ultimates I have little to no problems with, as they have what I think is an almost perfect balance of fun / skillful to use with solid counterplay options. First is the classic Genji Dragon Blade. When it comes to mobility, there's a surprising amount of skill involved with this ultimate mechanically than you think, because if you mess up a single dash, it'll be impossible to catch up to any enemy, making your whole ultimate a bust. Blade has a ton of team combo potential with damage boost, speed boost, or ultimates that keep people together. It does have counterplay options too with your own team support ultimates, stuns, boops, or simply hiding or running away. Sigma's Graphitic Flux is so awesome to me, man. The visuals, the ult line and audio design, and just the feel of being able to slam a bunch of people to the ground at a guaranteed half HP. I admit on Sigma's launch, this ultimate was pretty dumb when you weren't even able to stun Sigma out of it. But once they added that ability in, it became so much more interesting and fun for both sides in my opinion. Now on Sigma, you have to take into account for stuns which are possible to avoid with the ability to fly and your shield. The ultimate has big team combo potential of course with it keeping people in place. And there's the mechanical element involved of hitting your spheres on people in the air before they hit the ground. I personally have zero problems with this ultimate at this point. Zarya's Graviton Surge is another classic good tank ultimate to me. Pulling people together just has huge team combo potential, and with your secondary fire, you have the potential to do all the damage you need in a grab without fully relying on your teammates. It's got the counterplay options of a ton of support abilities and ultimates, tank shields and mitigation blocking the grab, and the initial projectile can be eaten or deflected. Continuing with Pog Tank ultimates, we have Winston's Primal. This has been said by many over the years to be one of the most mechanically challenging ultimates to use in the game, and I definitely have to agree. Once you got the mechanics down though, you can really destroy squishies with primal juggles. It's not even just used for that, however. It can be used as a second life to save you, booping people off the map or into your teammates, or to simply cause disruption in a team fight to help your team get kills. A super fun ultimate to use that honestly got more fun with the recent primal jump perk. Next up we got the only support ultimate in this tier, Wu Yang. I never actually thought Ana's Nano Boost would ever be top for me, but they somehow made what I think may be an even better design with a similar concept. The amount of potential combos with this ultimate is pretty much infinite at this point, as being able to stun people on the ground can be massive for certain ultimates. Comboing it with Orissa's Terror Surge is one of my personal favorites. It doesn't even have to be the person you gave it to that follows up on the stun though, as other teammates can follow up on that stun, making even more team combo potential, which is an aspect I can't really say for Ana's Nano Boost. One of my favorite parts of this ultimate is the fact that you can use it on yourself, so you can go crazy aggressive with Wu Yang to stall points, straight up create space for your team, or just saving yourself. Forgot to mention you can save teammates too with the overhealth, and the healing it gives after it explodes. A ton of counterplay options available too with cover, shields, or simply running away. Overall, in my opinion, a fantastic ultimate design that I think deserves near the top of this tier. What's at the top though, you might ask? I mean, of course, it's Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. This thing is so dang satisfying to use to me, being able to stun enemies on the ground, and overall just flows with this kit so well. Enemies being on the ground means you get a ton of free hammer swings, fire strikes, and a pin. Your team following up is really important too. On the enemy side, I don't think there's a single ultimate in this game that feels satisfying to stop as a Rein Earth Shatter. In Rein vs Rein duels especially, trying to go mind reading mode on the enemy Rein is just so goofy and fun. It has never gotten ult to me all these years later. The ult can be stopped pretty easily with stuns, boops, and support abilities as well, which are all pretty satisfying to counter it with. Visuals are great, hearing the slam of the shatter is amazing, and hammer down is a freaking awesome ultimate line. That's all my thoughts on every ultimate currently in Overwatch 2 though. You can let me know in the comments if you agree, and what you think of a certain ultimate. Thank you all for the support as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Rocks go. All I want to do is stream all night. Lobby full. Rocks go. Never gonna play with me, but it's alright.